After our deep dive into the glitch-riddled ocean of Gen 1's mysterious secrets, today we have decided to look at the next ocean, Gen 2, which, when I think about that analogy again, Pokemon has more oceans than real life. Good job, hoenn! So today, we have come up with a selection of 8 quirky facts about Johto. Let's go, shall we? At number 8, we have what is probably the easiest way to find a shiny other than Gyarados. In Pokemon Crystal, the daycare, which combines the possibility of passively training your Pokemon with the newly introduced breeding mechanic, has an interesting quirk. The first time you talk to the man in there, he gives you an odd egg. This egg hatches into one of the so-called baby Pokemon: Elekid, Magby, Smoochum, Igglybuff, Cleffa, or Pichu. However, the funny part is that those Pokemon would randomly come with a 14% chance of being shiny, which, considering the normal odds of a bit more than 1 in 8,000, is kinda nice, isn't it? And on that side note, if you do not care about shinies, which you're pretty base for that, you actually do care about this one in particular. Why? Because if the Pokemon you get is not shiny, it will have 0 DVs, the Gen 2 equivalent of IVs, making it the weakest iteration of that Pokemon, so you better care. At number 7, we have a brick! That's it. It's just a brick. Gen 2 being, well, the second generation, is the first generation that had to worry about the ability of trading Pokemon with the generations before it. And worry about that it did. In Gen 2, you could trade with red, blue, or yellow, but interestingly enough, some Pokemon traded from these games would have held items. Those held items are of course not a thing in Gen 1. Now, some of the most useful things you can have is leftovers from Clefable and Light Ball from Pikachu. But more interestingly, Machop would have a Brick Piece. Brick Piece as an item does not exist in Gen 1, or in any of the gens from 3 onwards, at least at the time of making this video. What does it do in Gen 2? Well, nothing. You can sell it for $25, which albeit being more than I can confidently claim this video will make an ad revenue, but that's it. There is literally nothing else you can do with that brick piece. It has been speculated that this item was supposed to be related to the man in Vermilion City, who was making a building with the help of his Machop, perfectly tying into what this brick piece is all about. The hypothesis was that this man triggered a side quest involving those brick pieces at some point in the game, but then the side was cut from the game. However, as it stands, nobody can tell what this brick piece looks like due to the absence of item sprites in Gen 2, let alone its true purpose. At number 6, you have the fact that you can fall asleep at the moment you least expect it. Sleep is one of the most known Pokemon mechanics. It was there since Gen 1 and continues to haunt the player base with its inherent RNG nature. What also exists since Gen 1 is the move Rest, which will heal you from all damage and status conditions by putting you to sleep for 2 turns. However, what is a Gen 2 addition is Sleep Talk, a move that can be used while you are asleep, then copy a random one of your moves except for Sleep Talk itself. Sleep Talk is an interesting concept and all, until you realize that the way it is coded in Gen 2 is, well, slightly wrong. In Gen 2, if Sleep Talk calls Rest, the move will not fail like in subsequent generations, but will instead succeed, causing the Pokemon to go to sleep while sleeping. In practice, this heals up the Pokemon fully and resets its sleep counter, having the Pokemon wake up after 2 turns unless, of course, it uses Rest off of Sleep Talk during one of those turns and has to use that same process repeating itself over and over and over and over again. The most funny part about this is that, at least partly due to this glitch, Rest and Sleep Talk are some of the most prominent moves in Gen 2 competitive, with bulky Pokemon like Skarmory, Zapdos, or Raikou often using the move to heal themselves up, sometimes even while already asleep, contributing to the infamously stalling OU metagame of that generation. At number 5, we have a candy smuggler, or Dewey. Gen 2 introduced many Pokemon, one of them being Shuckle. Shuckle in Gen 2, and only in Gen 2, has this bizarre trait where if it's given a berry, and the berry is not used for some time, Shuckle would turn it into berry juice. And if that berry juice is kept held for long enough, it will turn into a rare candy. Which is interesting because Gen 2 was before abilities, which such out of battle effects would be normally tied to abilities such as Intimidate, lowering the encounter rate, or Flame Body making eggs hatch faster. But this Gen 2 Shuckle thing is not tied to a move or ability. It's just a property of Shuckle itself, which is interesting. However, this fact is not entirely true. The part where Shuckle can, by virtue of being Shuckle, make juice out of berries is true. However, making rare candies is never something Shuckle was capable of. What makes this story more interesting is that it sounds very believable, and there are YouTube videos out there that make the claim. However, Sir Collector Togami made a video that debunks the claim by looking into the disassembled code of Pokemon Crystal. This is the closest thing to a playground rumor being believed by the player base I have ever seen in the era of the internet. At number 4, we have Pikachu with swag. Pokemon Yellow is known for being the Pikachu version, if there ever was such a thing outside of maybe Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. Being the Pikachu game that it is, it allows you, through transfer from Pokemon Stadium, to have a Pikachu that knows Surf. Not only that, but if you use Surf with a Pikachu in Yellow, it shows you this. That's gotta be the most Chad Pikachu there ever was and will ever be. Now you might ask though, but Pokemon Yellow is in Gen 1. What does that have anything to do with Gen 2? And you would be correct. What this has to do with Gen 2 is that due to the fact that Gen 2 most likely uses a lot of code from Gen 1, if you bring the surfing Pikachu to Gen 2, well, this happens. That Pikachu is absolutely riding over Johto. At number 3, we have the ultra rare instance of Flash being useful. Of all the stupid, crappy HMs in Pokemon, Flash has definitely got to be the crappiest and stupidest of all of them. Not only is it as good as Sand Attack if used in battle, but you technically do not even need it to beat the game, as you can just look up the layout of whatever dungeon you're in online. However, in Pokemon Crystal, in one of the rooms in the Alph Ruins, you will find this unknown inscription that reads, Light, in case any of you do not speak unknown. Now, if you use Flash while standing right next to this wall, a secret passageway will open and you will find a couple of items, including, notably, a Moonstone, which is very hard to come by in Gen 2, making Flash, and by extension, Bellsprout Tower, not entirely useless. At number 2, we have Incompetence. In Gen 2, the player would discover upon entering Azalea Town that this dude named Kurt was able to make Pokeballs, which is a really cool concept that some craftsmen can make those by himself, needing only an apricorn and a full day of work. However, as it turns out, Kurt did not really know what he was doing back in Gen 2. The apricorn balls in Gen 2 did not actually work as intended. Love Ball, instead of working with Pokemon of the opposite gender, worked on Pokemon with the same species and gender as your own. Talk about a waste. The Moon Ball was literally just a Pokeball, and the Fastball only worked on Grimer, Magnemite, and Tangela for some reason. Now, if this was the best Pokeball independent craftsman outside of whoever makes Master Balls, no wonder the mainstream reliable alternative would be more popular. And last but not least, we have the most you can't make this stuff up incentive to level your Pokemon to level 100. Pokemon Crystal introduced the Battle Tower. which is this facility where you battle trainers with highly competitive, randomly created teams that will prove to be much more challenging than any main story fight. This early iteration of the Battle Tower was definitely peculiar, though, with the notable ability to set the challenge level of any multiple of 10, from 10 to 100, with the clause that you cannot be higher level than your opponents. And at that, even the level 10 challenge was the farthest from easy, with threats like Aerodactyl, Jolteon, Heracross, or even Snorlax. With a level 10 like that, what would the level 100 even be like? The answer is, well, not that threatening. Now, the Pokemon you could fight there were still competitively trained with awesome movesets, and there were some good mons like Executor, Jolteon, Arcanine, and Scizor, but the most bonkers threats were not there. No Gen 1 or Gen 2 legendaries. No Snorlax, no Tyranitar, no Dragonite. And some of the stuff you can find instead is questionable at best, such as Mischievous, Fearow, and Sneasel. This is very strange considering that level 50 has Articuno, Zapdos, Snorlax, Gyarados, and some other threats. There are also no truly bad Pokemon outside of possibly Girafarig. Also, every level from 50 on has at least one legendary. And though 90 does not have any legends, it has Snorlax and Tyranitar and Skarmory, who all are missing from the level 100 roster. This really begs the question as to whether this was a scheme to reward players who reach level 100 with their squad by a more decent shot at winning the notoriously hard Battle Tower Challenge. And there we go. That was our Johto Obscure Fact List. Is there anything we may have missed or cut from the list that you thought was worth a spot? Feel free to tell us in the comments. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Check these ones out, and as always, have a great one.